Part of the reason we're not winning elections is because we're getting them stolen out from under us by dark money. If we don't solve this problem, elections are going to get so out of control, it won't matter what happens at the ballot box. It won't matter. It won't even matter whether you go down and count ballots. It's not going to matter because the people who vote are going, oh my gosh, Jake Merrick's a rhino.
Jenni and I have been great friends. We've worked together. We fought many battles. When you hear me talking about the fight against Common Core, she was one of the generals in that battle. We were her foot soldiers. We have gone to D.C. together. We've done a number of different things, but I can always count on her to set us straight on what's going on. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am that she has taken on this task of following the dark money and all the things all the ugly things that you saw come in your mailbox and everything. She's going to be able to address that and let us know where it came from, where it's going, and who's involved, I'm hoping. So come on up, Jenni.
Good evening, and I'm so glad that you're here, and I wish I had better news for you. I don't have much good news, but you know what? At the end of the presentation, you guys are going to be the good news, okay? So let's just hit it. All right, maybe. Oh, wait, yes. Okay, so lots of people saw lots of yucky things come out in the mail, right? We had lots of wonderful things. We would always get new ones and go, oh, what can they call them next? Okay. Lots of people have asked me, well, you're with Restore Oklahoma Public Education. This doesn't have anything to do with education. What the heck are you doing this for? I can tell you. So I was very upset about a Senate race that we had. Jake Merrick was a senator in Greater Oklahoma County, and he was a great guy. We worked with him, had several things that we worked with him on at the Capitol. Sincerely a good guy, Christian. He was somebody that we really needed to be there. Well, he voted no on the controversial voucher bill that was put forth this last year, and I was concerned that they were going to throw him out because he voted no, and I was right. And I will tell you this, it took $340,000 to do it. $340,000. Did you know that if you were going to run for a state Senate seat, you were going to have $30,000? Okay. So I got really incensed about that, and I started looking into who is donating money to him. And I will tell you this, even though I probably don't look like her, I felt a lot like Alice in Wonderland, because every single time I would find a pack and I would look at something, it led me to something else, which led me to something else, which led me to something else, which led me to, and so this is what you have. This took me approximately, that was a week's worth of work right there. And I mean hours and hours of sitting there trying to come to some conclusions about this. But here's what I want to say before I move on. The pink are nonprofit organizations. They're 501c4s. Does anybody know what a 501c4 is? Okay, it's a nonprofit organization. You can do political work with your money, but according to IRS regulations, how much does it have to be the percentage? It can only be a percentage of 45% of your total. So you can have a nonprofit that engages in political activity, but it has to be no more than 45% of the total amount of money that you bring into the nonprofit, all right? So that's in the pink. Then in the red, we have federal PACs, all right? So there's a distinction here. So these are C4 organizations, all right? That's a tax label, right? These things in red are a PAC. That's a generic term for a political action committee. It's not run by a C4 or any other IRS designation, okay? So those are in the red. Then you have state PACs that register with the state of Oklahoma, and those are in black. So I want you to just look at what's going on here. You have C4s donating to federal PACs, okay, that turn around and donate to, or they either pay people out or they'll donate to a state PAC, or my favorite ones are up here where they're just all donating to each other. All right? And the thing that it's honestly, I looked at it at one point and it looks like a washing machine to me.
Hey, Jenny, real quick, will we be able to let us have those slides?
Oh, absolutely.
And I can send them out so that these will be available to you.
Absolutely. They're also available on this particular figure is available on our website as well, and it's uploaded. So I looked at it and I thought, this looks like a washing machine. And when I really got down to brass tacks and finished as much of the research as I did, this is money laundering for political gain. If you do not believe me, all you need to do is look at what's going on here. This is money laundering for political gain, and we're the idiots that are not in on it, that are losing these races because we're not in on it. And that's, I think, the most frustrating thing, the thing that makes me angry. We are concerned about election integrity at the ballot box. We should very well be concerned about that. Absolutely. But I have to tell you that maybe in Oklahoma, more so than actual election integrity, this is what's fixing our elections. And it's a sad thing to say, because you can argue and you can say, well, they're not making anybody vote for anybody. But here's the problem. Human nature is the problem. We don't want to go out and do this work. I just told you it took me a week to do this. And when I say a week, I don't mean, well, I got up and I did so and so. I mean a week of sitting there while my neck hurt and nobody wants to do that work. But you know what? They get something in the mail and they go, oh, Jake Merrick's a rhino? I'm not voting for him. Right? Because people are not, they don't want to look for themselves. They don't want to study for themselves. And this is why this works. This works because they know that works. And the more money they get, the more influence they get. The more influence they get, the more money they get. It's nothing but a circle. It's a circle just like this. All right. I'm going to talk about, and this, I may end up seeing people going like this, but here's the problem. We have to get into the nitty-gritty details of this, because if we don't understand the nitty-gritty details, we're not going to be able to understand how to fix it. So you're going to have to bear with me on the nitty-gritty details, okay? I'm going to start with a 501c4 organization called A Public Voice. It has had 501c4 status since 2013. It's $9.90 because don't forget, you cannot find anything out about a 501c4 organization unless you go to the Internal Revenue Service website and look for that PAC or look for that 501c4. Here's the trick. You have to have the EIN number to be able to use the IRS website to be able to pull up everybody's going, oh, see, you guys are too quick. You're getting it right off the bat. The whole thing's a trick. Okay. So, well, now okay, well, I'm done then. You got it. Okay. So you go to the website, you have to have the EIN number. So what you have to do is you have to search the name of the 501c4, and hopefully something will come up. Then you track it through whatever you find online. Eventually you'll come to the EIN number. Then you have to go back to the IRS. Then you put the EIN number in. Then you pull up the 990. Then you have to scour the 990, which can be as many as 35 pages, to see if you can find what you need to find. Now, here's the other trick. 501c4s do not have to report where their money comes from. I've seen many, many PACs that have millions and millions of dollars of revenue recorded, and all it will say was private donation, $600,000, private donation, $800,000, and they don't have to do it. So you have no idea where that money comes from the beginning. So let's just make sure we understand that part, okay? All right, so the 990 lists an Ohio address. Now, hey, we start with an O. I guess we're close. This is an Ohio PAC, all right? There is no principal officer named, and the only address that's provided leads to a registration company. You'll see that a lot. A registration company is somebody who just, you say, hey, I want to have a C4 that says, Mama's going to cook tonight. Just came off the top of my head. And they say, okay, great, give me $500 and we'll register that. That's all a registration company does, okay? So it has a principal office, no principal officer named. The address leads to a registration company. There are no tax records for 2021 available. And I, just like I said, you can't find donations unless you're sitting in the 990 and can look at it. All right. This particular PAC donated to Advance Oklahoma PAC, $225,000, and a PAC called Build and Protect for $100,000. So keep those in your head a second. Now, very little information other than I just told you is provided in that particular tax filing. So that's all we know about a public voice. All right, now, let's go to Build and Protect PAC because they just got money from a public voice for $100,000. Every PAC is supposed to have a treasurer, all right? So let's keep that in mind. Every PAC is supposed to have a treasurer. Why? Because money comes in and out, and you're supposed to be able to document where that money goes. The treasurer is Dustin McIntyre. Its address is a pack and ship in Nichols Hills. That's an interesting thing. I don't know that if you know or not, but yesterday there was an Ethics Commission interim study on the Ethics Commission. I'm sorry, it was an Ethics Committee. So an Ethics Committee interim study on the Ethics Commission. And I was asked by the representative, Wendy Stearman, to come and give my research. Well, before I gave my research, the woman who is the director of the Oklahoma Ethics Commission gave hers. And I heard her say numerous times that PAC should have a street address. So just keep that in your head. All right. And I want to point this out. So, and I'll probably say it again twice, so you'll have to forgive me on that. But if you get a PAC that says so-and-so is a butthead, whatever, right? And you want to go and say, hey, why did you say this? Or I want to know more about that. Are you going to go to a Nichols Hills Pack and Ship? Are you going to find your answer there? Just asking. All right. So this particular PAC, Build and Protect, made disbursements to South Creek Group, LLC, CAMP, which stands for Campaign Advocacy Management Professionals, Red Maverick Media, LLC, FlexPoint Media, Inc., Amber Integrated, LLC, and there were no IEs. I'm going to say that a lot. An IE is an independent expenditure. So if you want to have, let's say I want to support a candidate, okay, but I don't want to directly go support that candidate. Okay, I can form a PAC and support that candidate without he or she knowing that I'm supporting them. It's an independent expenditure. I'm independent of the candidate and I expended money on their behalf. Does that make sense? So that's an IE, all right? It's very weird, but FEC PACs can give you an IE. Like if they're directly paying somebody for the candidate or directly paying something against the candidate, it will say independent expenditure, all right? But mostly they just list these things as disbursements. A disbursement is just a bolus of money going out. What does that mean? Okay? So they had those disbursements. Now, there was an Oklahoma PAC filed, okay? Let me back up. Oklahoma, PACs operating in Oklahoma should be filed with the Oklahoma State Ethics Commission. There isn't a rule that says they must. Okay? And here's the thing that I forgot to mention that you guys need to know as I move on. There is and you'll have to excuse me because I'm not super great on the law yet because this took me long enough. I'll have to go back and put it all together. But the way I understand it, there's a loophole in which if you file an FEC PAC, you don't have to file with the state ethics commission, okay? And that can be a problem because an FEC PAC is usually put together because it's the Federal Election Commission. You're running a federal candidate or a candidate for a federal seat. So the only reason these PACs are creating a federal PAC is so they don't have to register with the Oklahoma State Ethics Commission. And if you register, you're supposed to give all the information about the PAC. So do you see how that cuts out transparency right there? Okay. So there were Oklahoma independent. Now, they are required, if you do have an FEC PAC that's spending money in the state of Oklahoma, you do have to file those independent expenditures. Does that make sense? Okay, so they did file with the OKEC, but they're not registered. Dustin McIntyre is listed as the compliance officer. Okay, expenditures were to the same groups that I just mentioned, but see, the state expenditures didn't match the FEC expenditures. Okay? And I've got this, I really geeked out on this and I wrote a whole scientific paper about it, including tables and figures. So that'll be done at some point. All right. Now here's where you got to focus. All of the independent expenditures but two supported John George for state representative. One was against the opponent. Okay? Now this is an independent expenditure. John George is a camp client, and all of the independent expenditures for George pay entities other than camp, but for one that paid Brenda Stanley, and that was using camp. So just think about that a second. An independent expenditure is somebody coming in and doing something on behalf of or opposing a candidate without that candidate knowing about it. Okay, a man named Fount Holland and Matthew Parker are partners in camp, okay?
So that's a consultant.
That's a consultant. As a matter of fact, all of these groups up here are some form of consultant, okay, political consultant.
Where are they from?
All right.
Remember the name Fount Holland.
So the PAC, now hold on because this gets really important here. All right. The PAC address is also the one that's used for George's website and other camp clients, by the way. All right, now hold on. So here's what I wanted to show you. It's hard for you to picture it, I know, when I say it. So out of all of the things, all of the ones look like this. This is a report, an independent expenditure report from the State Ethics Commission, okay? This is what was filed on behalf of that PAC, all right? So they all look like this. $3,864 was an independent expenditure. It paid for direct mail. The South Creek Group, LLC, paid for it. Do you understand how that works? Now, here is one for camp to support Brenda Stanley. Let me point out again, this is a camp client. This is one PAC. Okay, now here's what I was trying to say about the donations or the expenditures don't line up. So you have these expenditures here reported at the federal level, and these expenditures reported at the state level.
I can't read the numbers from here.
Well, so $73,275.70 was reported at the federal level. $92,540.80 was at the state level.
Those numbers come off the federal?
This side comes off the federal filing. This side comes off the state, IEs. Okay? All right. So, here are the questions I think we all need to have the answers to. Should a political service provider be paid from a PAC supporting its own client? In this case, George. Okay? If it's an independent expenditure, the client is not, the person, the candidate is not supposed to know, correct? But then the candidate's campaign advisor is involved in the PAC. Does that make sense? Okay. I can't say that. All I can do, and nobody can say anything about that, all you can do is point to evidence, right? Okay. So should George's campaign website and the PAC supporting him have the same postal address? No. Should the FEC disbursements match the state independent expenditure reports? Don't forget, we don't have a treasurer, we just have a compliance officer, and it's the same one as the federal one. Okay, and it'll make a lot more sense as we go on. Why are disbursements reported to an FEC registered PAC for a candidate not running for a federal office in the first place? I couldn't figure that one out. Why is the PAC not registered with the Oklahoma Ethics Commission? If it's doing business in Oklahoma, why is it not registered? This, by the way, was my Senate district. Should the PAC have a treasurer and compliance officer who lives in Oklahoma with an Oklahoma street address if it's working in Oklahoma? All right. Now we're going to go, you just saw Dustin McIntyre, his name, correct? He was the treasurer and the compliance officer. According to FEC records, Dustin McIntyre is associated with numerous PACs across the nation and at least 8 associated with Oklahoma candidates, and then PACs, Parents and Student First, Protect Our Freedoms PAC, Job Creators Action Fund, Fund for a Working Congress, Advanced Oklahoma PAC, Oklahomans for Law and Order, Muskogee Diversity Coalition, and Hometown Freedom Action Network. I'll show you the table in a second. According to paperwork filed with the FEC for the Protect Our Freedoms PAC, McIntyre's email address is through the FEC Compliance Group, once called the Clark Ford Group, both based out of Columbus, Ohio. Another guy, Joel Ryder, who has numerous PACs that he works in Oklahoma, also works for the Ford Group. The reason why I say this, because I know it's super dry, but what I need you to understand is how none of this is simple. There are no straight lines here. None. Yes, ma'am.
I'm thinking, when I was looking at one time I ran.
Yeah, thank you.
Falling down on my duties.
I'm going to let her ask. Well, I'm choking myself up here. Can you hand me my water? Thank you. Well, let's.
Remember when we lost that whole slew of conservative. 2018, yeah. Mm-hmm. And a couple of them tried to go to court, and as far as they could get was that the money that came to attack them, that beat them in the race, all came from Ohio. But they never could dig as deep as Miss you have. But they said it all came from Ohio.
Yes, and that would be correct. All right, now I want you to understand this. There is virtually no digital footprint for Dustin McIntyre. The man is a ghost. All right, now I want to show you something. So this is my table 1, and I want you to look at this. So here are the addresses here. These are all Nichols Hills Pack and Ship addresses. The Advance Oklahoma PAC, Build and Protect PAC, Gabe Renfro for Oklahoma, Logan Phillips for State House 24, John George for Oklahoma, and back in 2020, elect Mike Masters were all from this Pack and Ship. These are the political entities tied with those PACs. Okay? These are FEC PACs. 1602 Bellevue Boulevard is a parcel plus in the Bellevue Shopping Mall in Virginia. And the Commonwealth Conservative Fund, which did work in Oklahoma in 2018, Americans for Secure Elections and True Michigan PAC are there. But I'm wanting you to look at what the name is associated with those. Also on Bellevue Boulevard, but just over a little way, are the Oklahomans for Law and Order, Fund for Working Congress, Protect Our Freedoms PAC, Freedom Conference PAC, Advance Oklahoma PAC, and again, this is who is Omni Consulting is actually owned, if you look it up, by Stephanie Alexander. So these are the people that are associated here. This is Amber Integrated. This is South Creek Group, and I've forgotten what MS is right off the top of my head. So there you go. And so now we have more. These are all Dustin McIntyre down here, I told you was Joel Ritter. But I do want you to see. So we have a P.O. box that's the same as the South Creek Group. That's Okie Way and Parents and Students First. One that's the same as the Oklahoma State Chamber. That's the Job Creators Action Fund. One in the UPS Staples. One in the UPS Staples. One in the UPS Staples. Okay?
So are these those?
Sound like really nice packs.
Yeah.
So are these those
Hold on. Let me.
Dropbox mailboxes at these big package ships and things?
Yes, that's exactly it. Okay, so now we're going to look at the 501c4 called Prosperity Alliance. This is an incredibly important PAC because it's also out of Ohio. Okay, this has been active in Oklahoma for numerous years, but this is my example about how bad our laws and rules regarding any of this mess is. All right, so they were incorporated in 2017. The only street address is for a tax preparer in Ohio, but there's no treasurer named. The director, Tyler Connor, has a P.O. box address that matches a large corporation registry in Delaware. You're going to hear this over and over again. They'll incorporate in Delaware because Delaware has very low taxes. And by the way, if I wanted to go to the Secretary of State of Delaware and look up any information, it cost me $20 and I still couldn't get ownership. Okay? The P.O. box is also used for another PAC. That PAC was active in Oklahoma in 2018, but there's no 990 on record with the IRS after 2018. This is going to become super important when I tell you this. It gave $300,000 to Oklahomans for Law and Order in 2022. The donation was only discovered because I accidentally found it in the Oklahomans for Law and Order FEC filing. Okay, Oklahomans for Law and Order is the same way. It's an FEC PAC that also has state independent expenditures filed, but is not registered with the state. Okay, so if you look at the FEC PAC, they got $300,000 for Prosperity Alliance. Who's the treasurer? Dustin McIntyre. Their address is at Parcel Plus. They spent $275,000 on TV advertising, but the PAC records it as a disbursement and doesn't say what the television was for. So you just go to the PAC and it says, hey, just to let you know, we dropped a cool $275 on some television advertising, but you get to guess what it's for. Okay? All right. So the state independent expenditures were filed, not registered. Dustin McIntyre is the compliance officer. Where is Dustin? We don't know. But he says, where?
So, addendum. Is there anybody in here who doesn't know who I am? Okay. For those of you who are playing this for the first time, my name is Daryl Simmons and I'm the real life Sherlock Holmes. I am a retired naval intelligence analyst who now makes a living doing two things. One, I have a morning show. Secondly, I assist certain organizations on a case-by-case basis.
So tell me who he is.
And because a PAC with Dustin McIntyre as the sole signatory levied $400,000 to win a state Senate seat against my best friend in a seat that normally costs $60,000 to win and usually has $100,000 total spent by all candidates just to win the primary against my best friend. This PAC spent $400,000 against my best friend. I felt like I had a little skin in this game. So I used those skills that you taxpayers cultivated in me over 20 years, and I found Dustin McIntyre's house. He's a real person. He lives in northern Maryland. His house costs twice as much as mine. Rhonda, you can see my house from space. And his house costs twice as much as mine. What I can't find yet, through layers of encryption and security that most of you probably don't appreciate because you don't know who and where I'm coming from here, but even from me, Dustin McIntyre has been able to hide who he works for.
And so I
But
guess
I found
that's,
his house in northern Maryland.
yeah.
Now, why does someone who lives in northern Maryland give a rat's tootie about an Oklahoma State Senate
Right.
race?
So let me go on here. So the address is in Nichols Hills Pack and Ship. There were $300,000 in donations not recorded in state filing, right? So at the federal level, you could find out that it came from Prosperity Alliance, but this is the problem with the state. They can report how much they spent, but they will not tell you where it comes from. Okay? You don't get those on the donations. There aren't any of them that I've found. All right, so they reported $275,000 in TV expenditure to oppose John O'Connor for Attorney General. All right, now let's ask some questions. Why are there two addresses for the PAC, a P.O. box in the Bellevue Shopping Mall in Virginia and a P.O. box in the Nichols Hills Pack and Ship shared by numerous other PACs and candidates? Why does neither address correspond to a street address? Why is the PAC not registered with the Oklahoma Ethics Commission? Because it's not doing a federal race, it's doing a state race. Why aren't they registered here? Why are there no donations reported to the OKEC and only the FEC? All right, so here's something else that you need to know about Prosperity Alliance, okay? It has 2 complaints against it with the FEC lodged by Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. They're called CREW. These complaints stem from both their 2017 and 2018 IRS filings. CREW alleges numerous violations of federal tax code, claiming in part that Prosperity Alliance exceeded the permitted expense related to political activity for its tax status, that it failed to report $1 million in spending, and that in-kind donations were made to Conservative Alliance PAC but were not properly documented. Formal complaints were made by CREW to the IRS September 11th, 2019, and again in February 2021. To date, the IRS has addressed neither claim, and Prosperity Alliance is still working in the state this year. All right. We're going to go to something called Sooner State Leadership Fund, which is another 501c4. It was incorporated in 2022 in Wilmington, Delaware by the Corporation Trust Company, which is the largest trust corporation in the entire world. There's no director or anything listed on their paperwork, but there is a website for the fund, for the Sooner State Leadership Fund, that lists Trevor Worthen as treasurer and chairman. Trevor Worthen was a partner of Fount Holland when they had a previous company before Camp. So Trevor Worthen has been involved in political activity for numerous years. There is no IRS 990 filed because they're actually spending money before the tax season comes, right? So they're spending money before they've even filed their first 990, all right? The FEC filing for Fund for a Working Congress shows a $1 million donation. All right, so what is a Fund for a Working Congress then? Where did that $1 million go? Well, it's an FEC PAC that records that $1 million donation from Sooner State Leadership Fund. The treasurer is, the address is a We're getting it now. Okay. All right. $1.4 million was spent to oppose Josh Burkeen for Congress. Lesser amounts were spent opposing John Bennett and Scott Pruitt. $70,000 was spent for Avery Fricks. There was only one disbursement listed for Oklahoma on the PAC, and that was to Omni Consulting Group, which is owned by Stephanie Alexander, for $30,000. So that was all in a race that they put in $1 million for. Okay, you got 30,000 reported. Okay. Should a federal PAC be influencing Oklahoma elections at a pack and ship address? If individual disbursements are not provided by the PAC, how does the public know who is responsible for the Josh Burkeen opposition ads? Now, I'm going to stop there. If that were me, I'd want to know. Isn't it my right to know? Isn't it your right to know? Are you voters? I don't know about you, but that makes me hot under the collar. Shouldn't Oklahoma, I know I get hot under the collar a lot. I know she's laughing at me now. Okay, shouldn't Oklahoma voters be able to easily find out that a PAC running opposition ads against a candidate is receiving money from a 501c4 registered in Delaware? Should donations from inside the state fund in-state elections? Just to let you know, there's no rule on that. So if somebody wants to come in from, which is a lot of the reason why these PACs are done from outside, there's no rule.
Why do we not have a rule?
Yeah. These are good questions. Let's continue to ask them. All right, Advance Oklahoma PAC. Now we've moved on from the C4s that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about this PAC, which is called Advance Oklahoma PAC. It was registered in 2020. Its treasurer is... Its address is a Parcel Plus in the Bellevue Shopping Center in Virginia. It received contributions from American Exceptionalism Institute, which is a 501c4 for $100,000. A Public Voice, you've already heard about them, right, for $225,000. And Hometown Freedom Action Network PAC, you've seen their name before listed on the table, right, for $10,000. There were no independent expenditures provided at the FEC level out of this PAC, but there were disbursements to Camp, Amber Integrated, South Creek Group, Red Maverick Media LLC, and Wenzel Strategies. All right, now let's look at the state. What did it do at the state? Oh gosh, well, I don't know because it's not registered with the Oklahoma Ethics Commission. Its compliance officer is, okay, its address is okay, there were actually no donations even recorded for this, just like I talked about a minute ago, just independent expenditures. Now I'm going to tell you again what I told you before. The independent expenditures do not match what was reported at the FEC level for what was reported at the state level, okay? Now, the independent expenditures supported 5 camp clients: Gabe Renfro, Logan Phillips, Teresa Sterling, Hunter Zierle, Jeff Sawatsky, and one South Creek, oh, I'm sorry, not Hunter Zierle. He was not a camp client. He was a South Creek Group client. I forgot to fix that. And then one Ascend Action client, Richard Miller. The independent expenditures opposed candidates running against the camp clients: Angelina Brinley against Randy Randleman and Chris Banning against Logan Phillips. And it was kind of a pattern a lot like the Build and Protect PAC that I showed you before. So here I kind of broke this down because I wanted it to be really visible. So here you have the date. These are all from independent expenditures in Oklahoma, okay? Here you have the date, here you have the money, here you have the entity receiving the expenditure, which was the political consulting entity, and the candidate supported, and the candidate campaign consultant, okay? So I want to make the point that these are all camp clients, and notice that that the expenditure did not support camp. So Amber Integrated was charged for Phillips, even though they were a camp client. Red Maverick, Amber were recorded as paying for Renfro candidates, even though they were camp clients. So you come down here, and South Creek Group ran Sawatsky's campaign, and camp was then billed for them. Hunter Zerly was South Creek Group, but then camp was billed for them, or backwards. So what I'm trying to say is we have the same political consultants being paid out of the PAC with their clients, okay? All right, I do want to point this out. This is camp's website. They've done some work for Advance Oklahoma PAC, and they wanted you to know that here's what they did. That was their work for Advance Oklahoma PAC. Okay, so here's some questions that I think we need to ask about this PAC. Should Advance Oklahoma named political entities be paid out of the same PAC where independent expenditures were made for their own clients? Should Advance Oklahoma PAC have the same addresses found on the websites for Gabe Renfro and Logan Phillips, both camp clients that were just paid out of that PAC? Should FEC disbursements match state independent expenditure reports? Why are disbursements reported to an FEC registered PAC when no candidate was identified running in a federal office? Why is the PAC not registered with the Oklahoma Ethics Commission? Should the PAC have a treasurer or compliance officer that actually lives in Oklahoma with an Oklahoma street address? All right, those are just a few of the 14 that I looked at. Of the 14 that I looked at, I believe there were 40 PACs. I didn't actually count them. There were numerous pages of them. So I just took a small portion to look at, okay? And I will tell you this. Out of the portion that I looked at, the 14, there are some PACs in there that are actually doing transparent things. They are registered with the Oklahoma Ethics Commission. They do have legitimate treasurers that have legitimate addresses that you could actually go find, and even phone numbers. And I will say, the Oklahoma Ethics Commission does require that they have a phone number. But I want you to know that I called each and every phone number, and here's what I got. Thank you for calling. There's nobody here to take your call. Please leave a message and we'll get back with you, for every single one. Well, I'm sorry. If I'm mad about seeing a nasty ad, I want to talk to you now. You don't need to give me a call back. I want somebody to be able to answer the phone, okay? Now, here's a thing that we need to wrap up with. As many of these PACs as I've found, that I hope you understand there are numerous questions involved here that we need to find the answers to. There are non-reporting election influencers. Again, I'm going to go back to the Jake Merrick race, all right? Oklahomans for Conservatives Values ran several digital video ads against Jake Merrick on Facebook that warned State Senator Jake Merrick loosened restrictions on sex offenders and put our community in danger. Well, that could scare people, right? Okay? Who wants somebody loosened a sex offender registration? Okay, they also went door-to-door distributing flyers with a QR code with the text, "Oklahomans deserve better." Information collected from Facebook's ad database provides an address of 100 Broadway, Suite 1500, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73102. This is the address for a company called DeB Gilchrist, a professional corporation that incorporates many Oklahoma companies. Facebook reports that OCV, Oklahomans for Conservative Values, spent $13,600 on ads from May 7th, 2018 to September 3rd, 2022. If you spend over $3,000, you are required by law to have to report to the Oklahoma State Ethics Commission. They're considerably over. Okay? Facebook reports that OCV spent between $3,000 and $3,500 in 2022 and generated between 60 and 70,000 impressions. Okay? No FEC or Oklahoma State Ethics Commission filings were found for that group from 2018 through 2022, and I looked backwards and could not find any. The website has been scrubbed. It's down. You can't find it anymore. It just says, "Ah, snap." Okay? The Facebook posts have been scrubbed. All right, here's what it looked like. So this was one of the ads. This was the mailer that came door to door. And I will say that the woman who gave me all of this information was a Jake Merrick fan. And so she was watching this race very, very closely. And she said that she was home when the guy brought the mailer by. And she said from the questions, this is just her telling me, I don't have firsthand information. She said that when she questioned the man about the flyer, it seemed as though he had been paid to do it because he didn't have any answers. Okay? All right. So then there's the little thing about the page that says Oklahoma is for conservative values. We deserve a senator who fights for conservative values. Well, I'm trying to think of what conservative means anymore, but that's just me. Okay, now I went back to, because one of the things that I do, I'm not a forensic person, but I do want to stop at this point and tell you. Every single thing that I've found and every single thing that I've told you tonight was public information. The only thing that I had to pay for was when I went to Secretary of State websites. I had to pay money to be able to get that information, which I think should be illegal. That shouldn't be right. But and you have to pay $10, a minimum of $10 in the state of Oklahoma, sometimes up to $35 to get certain papers. And in Delaware, you have to pay a minimum of $20 to get anything. And like I said, in Delaware, they're paid to hide the ownership anyway. So I spent $40 usually for nothing. But anyway, so I will be asking for donations at the end of this program. So I went and I searched that address because I wanted to see what it was, and this came up, DeBee and Gilchrist, Oklahoma City, Suite 1500, 100 North Broadway Avenue. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've seen that somewhere before. So I went and looked because I've done some considerable study on OCPA and the number of PACs and 501c4s that they operate, because there are a number of them. And they use DeBee Clark in Oklahoma City. Now, the address is different, but I called this number right here and it went to DeBee Clark. So I am assuming they moved or something and it's an old address or a new address or whatever. Now, I'm not implicating OCPA. I'm just saying this is where that information came from. Okay, so let's recap. Out-of-state 501c4 donations are influencing Oklahoma elections. 501c4 donors do not have to be identified, and 50c4 ownership is often obscured via Delaware incorporators. Donations are made from one PAC to another across state and federal levels, right? The washing machine. Questions surround many of the PACs that have used funds to directly influence Oklahoma elections, all of which directly speak to the level of transparency available to Oklahoma voters across a broad range of political campaigns. At least one 501c4 in this presentation, which is donated to Oklahoma PACs in the 2022 election cycle, has active IRS investigations against it, hasn't even filed taxes, and yet they're still spending money to influence Oklahoma elections. At least one election influencer in this presentation has no footprint at all in the ethics system. All right, so let's close up. Oklahoma elections are becoming more and more expensive, and candidates mounting conventional campaigns are finding it more and more difficult to overcome the influence of dark money. As I just said, as Daryl just said, I mean, these races are getting outrageous. $300,000 for a race, $600,000 for a race. As dark money proliferates, transparency declines. I think you would agree with that from what you've seen. And by the way, I didn't make any of that up. It's all publicly available. You can check my work, and it's all just facts. I'm not trying to imply anything here. I'm asking questions and stating facts, okay? All right. The PAC money is now being used to influence municipal elections, if you didn't know that. I know that the mayor in Tulsa created a PAC for himself because he wanted to elect Republicans. I'm not sure what those mean. So I guess what happens is that we have two words being ruined, Republicans and conservatives. We'll have to find something else. Maybe one guy proposed on my page the other day, we should just move straight to rebels. So I'm thinking maybe that's what we do. Instead of a big R for Republican, it means rebel. So the Muskogee mayoral race used the Muskogee Diversity Coalition PAC that was an FEC registered PAC again, so they didn't have to create anything at the state level. And the Cleveland County Commissioner's race was done by Advance Oklahoma PAC, which you saw, okay? This is super important because if we're going to get into municipal elections, I could find this stuff for state elections and federal elections just spending a lot of time going through online, okay? But here's what you have to do in a municipal election. The PAC is supposed to file at the county courthouse. The county courthouse doesn't put that online. So if I want to go see who put money into Diversity Coalition PAC, although it does say on the FEC filing, by the way, I would have to go to the Muskogee County courthouse and have them tell me, and just the same with the Cleveland County courthouse. So that impedes, that's a two-pronged problem. Not only are we putting more money into a municipal, I was mayor in my little town of Luther. It cost me $150 to win that seat by sending out postcards. Can you imagine what it would cost now? Okay? So in some cases, money is being spent to influence local elections outside of Oklahoma, okay? All right, so I didn't want to leave here without giving you some proposed action because I've thrown a lot of stuff on you, and I have to give you all a round of applause because everybody's awake. Ooh, 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 that's great. I'm so happy because I thought everybody was going to be asleep. So here are my action steps, okay? Are you ready? Yes. Okay. Watching the Ethics Committee interim study on the Ethics Commission, which will be posted on our Rumble page and our YouTube channel. Don't watch it just for me, because you've already heard me. You want to watch it for Ashley Kemp, who is the director of the Ethics Commission. I want you to hear what Ashley had to say. I also want you to know that I did talk to Ashley in person. She said, wow, this is amazing research. We need more people to do this kind of thing. You know, keep in touch. I sent her 2 emails after that, never heard from her. When I was doing my presentation, she left the room and was gone. And I do want to point out that that the chairman of the committee, Jim Olson, did offer questions to be asked of anybody that was in the room.
What Rumble page is that?
It's Reclaim Oklahoma Public Empowerment. Parent empowerment. I don't even know what my own. I'm so confused by this now. I don't even know what's my name again? Okay. All right. I'm talking about Oklahoma. Okay. Contact chair, the Oklahoma Ethics Committee, not the commission, okay? Because there's 2 different things. You know that we have committees at the state level. There is a committee set up for ethics, following ethics. Jim Olson is the head of that committee, and Max Wolfley is the vice chair. Contact them and say, you know, hey, because he saw me, he was there, say, hey, oh my gosh, that crazy Jenni White, I saw her report, and I am very concerned about this. I want you to continue looking into it. What's going to happen if you don't do that? Nothing. Okay, begin, that is a House committee. Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you very much. It's a House committee. Begin attending meetings of the Oklahoma Ethics Commission. I will be. I just didn't realize that their one was for tomorrow morning, so for the month. But they're monthly meetings. And I do want to point out that when you watch, because I'm expecting you to go watch the interim study, when you watch it, you will notice that Ashley Kemp said, she was asked, where do these rules generate? And she said, within the commission. The Ethics Commission is set up so that there are 4 commissioners that are appointed by 4 different types of elected officials, and then the director, okay? And when you go to the commission meeting, the commissioners can propose rules. The attorneys working for the Oklahoma Ethics Commission can propose rules. But she also said that people attending the commission could also I wish she hadn't said that. She wishes she hadn't said that. But she said that people could actually come to the Ethics Commission and they would take rule suggestions. Pay close attention to political ads. There is a state law that says if they're doing an independent expenditure and it's not sent out by the candidate itself, this was produced by the candidate, right? Okay, so it doesn't have to have one on the back. But if I were doing an independent expenditure for you, all right, it would have, I would say, vote for Brad Banks, but I would say not paid for by the candidate, paid for by blah, blah, blah. Jenni White for blah, 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 right? Okay, make sure they say that. And there is a rule that says they have to be legible. I want to go... Make sure that. So I want to go back here. Is this legible?
No.
Well, I can read not authorized and paid for and Iserized and Rudste, but I can't read anything else. Okay? So you could actually file a complaint about that. And that's another thing. Shoot, I should have put that on my list of things. Dang it. You can file complaints with the Ethics Commission for these particular things. So I filed 2 complaints so far just for not having the right address and the right information. One second. So you can file complaints, but here's the rub. The Oklahoma Ethics Commission will not even read complaints until after the election. What? There is a blackout period because they believe that what would happen is candidate campaigns would file on each other, and so then there would be, all mayhem would break loose. Sorry, folks, I think all mayhem has already broken loose. I think if any mayhem that's happening during a political campaign could probably be easily excused. And how can it be worse than calling? Have you seen some of the political mailers? You tell me how it's somehow worse for candidates to file on each other when you've got these guys out here with unlimited amounts of money calling them anything they want. And they get away with it. No slander, no nothing, because you're a public figure and they can do whatever they want to you. That's craziness. So to say there has to be a quiet period, and here's another thing I found out just the other day at the Ethics Committee interim study. Do you know that that nobody can see my complaint? If you call and say, hey, I want to see how many complaints were filed, they won't tell you because you can't even see the complaints. They're not public. Why are the complaints not public? Who is that protecting? Good question, isn't it? Okay.
I think you also have a plaintiff problem, don't you? Because you don't know who to sue.
Well, and that's another one. But hold on, I've got an answer for you on that. So hang on. So find out what campaign advisor your elected officials use. If there were any in this presentation, explain your concerns to them. Hey, are you one of the ones that are in that dark money group that are using dark money? Hey, are you doing that? Well, can you give that money back? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to change political consultants? The biggest problem, I ran to be the chairman of the Republican Party this last time. One of the reasons why, thanks my one supporter, thank you. one of the reasons I did that was because we have political parties running campaigns. We don't have parties representative of the people running campaigns, because we can say what we want about the Republican Party, but at least we have a platform that we can follow. We know what the general, we can say, hey, look, we'll sign you up as a candidate and we'll support you. Do you agree to follow the platform? And then we get to do that. But we've abdicated our responsibility here, and this has caused all kinds of political advisors to come out of the woodwork to make money on political campaigns, and they don't have the voters' best interest at heart. They have this at their, that's what they're after, not necessarily running proper political ads. Okay, tell other voters, you guys who are here today, I love you so much, and I love you for staying awake and being here, but your job is, hey, I had to talk to you about this presentation I saw last night, because I have to tell you that part of the reason we're not winning elections is because we're getting them stolen out from under us by dark money. If we, and I'm going to be so bold as to tell you this, and this is just my opinion, but I'm going to give you my opinion because I'm paid for it. If we don't solve this problem, elections are going to get so out of control, it won't matter what happens at the ballot box. It won't matter. It won't even matter whether you go down and count ballots. It's not going to matter, because the people who vote are going, oh my gosh, Jake Merrick's a rhino, right? So this is super, super important, you guys, and I really appreciate it. Now, if you have any questions, please throw them at me.
What is the title of your YouTube channel?
The title of our YouTube channel is Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment.
Because it's so easy.
I know. That's why we went to rope 2. It was so much easier to do that. So, did you have a question?
Yes, I
Hang
did.
on. Well, I danced my way down.
We got
Thank you. What I wanted to ask, since you've talked about how important this is, and I believe you, and I think it is too, what can we do to, other than tell other voters? Have you thought about something like, getting in touch with ACLJ, getting in touch with like Hannity or Jesse Waters, or someone that can really give the exposure to this at a federal level, even national level?
Well, I think, once this finally gets out and it gets kind of moving, I'm hoping that will happen. But here's what I would like to do. I really want to put our own ethics commission together. I want to find about 15 or 20 people who are as rabid about this issue as I am right now. And I want us to be political organizers that will get people together, that will show up at these meetings, that will go down to these legislators, because you've got to understand, we are way behind the 8 ball, because the money is going to the candidates. The money is going to seated legislators. And I'm not going to say, and I'm not saying this to anybody, I am not trying to impugn any legislator's character, but all I'm saying is there are legislators up there who have $100,000 and $300,000 in their campaign accounts. That's an insane amount of money. And if that's not buying influence, I don't know what is. And if influence is being bought and we don't have the money to do it, and not only that, we don't have the ethics to do it. I'm sorry, I am not going to dumb down my ethics to pay anybody for doing the right thing. It's not going to happen. So we're behind the 8 ball there. If we don't scream loudly about this, longly about it, and in great numbers, this is going to get exactly nowhere, because all of the money's on their side. Correct.
You got it
right away.
I agree.
Jenny, is it all one-sided against conservatives? Are there not conservative groups that are doing this stuff so that it equals out?
Okay, that's a really good question, and I'm going to tell you this. Please remember, this is kind of fallacy of small sample, right? For those of you who know that term. I've only looked at 14 out of tens of them, right? So I didn't look at Democrats, all right? But on the other hand, I didn't look for Republicans and I didn't look for Democrats. I just started following the trails. That's all I did. So I want that to be stated for the record too. I didn't do this to go after a particular candidate or anything else. I just wanted to know why there was so much money in Jake Merrick's race, and then I fell down the rabbit holes to everything else.
Oh, well, the thing that I run into or think about is I've heard that voting is changing now because there are a lot of states that approved this rank choice voting.
Yes, I've heard about that.
They're finding new ways to cheat, and this is a way to cheat. I mean, we're
well. When I
way
can sit
behind.
here and say, "Who's the treasurer?" That's a sad state of affairs.
And how much of that money are we talking about? That money has to come from somewhere. Did that all come from George Soros?
And how do we know?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We got some of the most horrible.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, well, that was actually my question of where the fountainhead of this, where's the money coming from? Or what would be your best guess? If
I literally have none because I have an idea, and it may not be popular here, but I'm going to give the idea anyway. I think there are a lot of Democrats and Republican clothes that are deliberately trying to skew the Republican Party by putting Democrat money in this through Republican sources. And you can, and I can't prove that because they've got it all covered up. So how am I going to prove that?
Can you or anybody in the room tell me whether specifically Carl Algren had found Holland consult for Democrats equally as much as for Republicans?
I have no idea. I would have to look that up, but I can tell you how to find that out. And this is how I matched political candidates with their clients. I went to the Oklahoma Ethics Commission website and I looked on each candidate's expenditure forms because each candidate has to produce an expenditure form. So I went and I looked through, and if they paid a political entity, I recorded as them having that political entity as their political advisor because they paid that entity. So if they paid South Creek Group, then I recorded them as that. If they paid Campaign Advocacy Management Professionals, then I put that. So that's how I recorded it. I did not find in that research, I didn't find any Democrats, but I didn't find any.
What's the name of Algren's group?
I have no idea.
He's still out there.
Okay.
I have two comments to make. First, because I got curious with the Frick's whatever campaigns. Burkine, thank you. And I started looking at the little fine print of who was doing what. And I found a site, and unfortunately I can't remember what it was, that had a table that said, this committee paid for or against either candidate. Okay. And it listed out, they paid for someone.
That's the IE expense.
Mm-hmm.
That's the expense.
Yes, that's
okay.
Go
right.
online and you
but
can
the
look at it.
same group was paying for both candidates, one for and one against.
Yes, ma'am.
We got some that said that they were from Delaware, that they was paid for by such and such a group
Yeah.
in Delaware.
She's got one more
Okay.
comment.
The comment that you made about the names of things, one of my main peeves is that most people only read the headline.
Correct.
Most people only read the top of anything and they never go any further. I mean, if you even go down to the third paragraph, you'll know the real truth. But the names of things is just like any other marketing. If it's going to sell, they're going to use it.
Oh, yes. They all say conservative, Oklahoma. And that's why people would ask me questions and I'm like, I have to look at the cheat sheet because all the names sound exactly alike.
Sorry, Brian.
Okay, if you are a novice to Oklahoma politics, when you go home tonight, I want you to Google 6 words, okay? The first word is fount, F-O-U-N-T. The second word is Holland, Holland. The third word is joy, Joy. The fourth word is Hofmeister, Hofmeister. The fifth word is campaign. I think you know how to spell that. And the sixth word is violations. You're going to find some very interesting things that happened in 2016 between those two. But this is a perfect example of what's going on. Joy Hofmeister should have been in jail.
That's right.
But I think it was the Oklahoma County District Attorney dropped the charges. Yeah. So a little history would be a good lesson.
When I ran in 2018, when I ran in 2018, there were three of us, and a lot of you know Margie. But the third one was Clay Iams. And Margie and I came pretty close, but I was the one dropped out of the primary. But Clay had a great campaign. When you got his thing, he had all the right clue words, and he was from the military, and he looked really good on paper. Turns out, though, Kennedy was giving him his money. He had a lot of money for his campaign. But then you figured it out that he wasn't even a registered Republican when he was behind the filing deadline. So when I was told that after I lost, I started doing digging. And Holland, and I think it was Camp at the time. I tracked all that money down, and just to help. So what I did is I wrote a 2-page letter that laid everything out, including Holland, and I even mentioned the campaign fraud claim that was against him with Joy. I laid out this 2-page letter about all of this. When the runoff hit, he lost by
60-40.
He dropped from being 48.
He had 47 in the primary, and then he lost 60-40.
It took one letter laying out the tracking of the money to get people to say, no, this isn't who we want. So this kind of stuff can help if you can get the message out.
Yeah, and like, why were incumbent Republican officers?
Follow the mic, Larry.
Jenny, have you read a document called the Kaiser System?
No, I have not.
It's out there. It's written by a local man named Michael Mason. It's about a dozen pages, and it really describes George Kaiser's octopus. He has an octopus to control things. And some of it's ideological, but some of it's money. I mean, he's the biggest bond daddy in Oklahoma. You know what a bond daddy is? He underwrites, issues, services, municipal county bonds. He's got 100% of the business in Tulsa County. That's pretty good. I mean, there's Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo. Why aren't they getting to play here? They don't. They get cut out. They don't get it. It's sole sourced. That's a good thing to read because somebody is the money behind all of this. Yeah. If I was a betting man, I'd bet a quarter that it's George Kaiser. For both ideological reason, he's a flaming liberal, and the money. When they're getting into municipal races or county races, it's about the bonds.
Oh, I never thought about that.
But you have to understand this dark money is the very same Ohio center that she's been talking about is flowing through all different states, all different races. So,
Okay, who had one more question? Who?
I'm just listening.
Okay, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Jenny will be here. We can visit with her, but I really try to be cognizant of your time that we're spending,
Yeah,
and I want
sorry,
to
I
let you get home.
I just wanted to make a comment. Some of the material we got before the last primary was just horrible. And Bob Jack was one of the worst ones. You would think that man should have been in prison years ago, by looking at that. But anyway, that's only an example.
Well, and they
His
showed
was the
somebody on
worst
there
one.
in an orange jumpsuit with.
No, I know. And listen, the stuff that went down in Tulsa is not done. It's not over. So a lawsuit's been filed, and there will be more forthcoming, I'm sure. But the unfortunate thing with dark money is that nothing gets done until after the election is over and the wrong person is sitting in the seat. So number one, we're videoing it. And so it will be on Tulsa 912 Project's YouTube page as well as our Facebook page. So you're welcome to to look at it there, share it with your friends, and then I'm sure that she's going to send us the slides, and I'll make those available as well.
Maybe we can get the action steps on the Tulsa GOP.
Yes, ma'am. I want to thank everybody. One thing that I failed to mention earlier is I don't know if you guys were aware, and I'm sure you probably are, but a very good friend to the conservative movement passed away last week. Charlie Biggs passed away unexpectedly at the age of 68. He ran the Tulsa Beacon newspaper, which was the only conservative newspaper that we have in Tulsa. There you go. He also did the Beacon Weekend on KCFO. He was a wonderful friend to us, and we lost a giant in him. Tomorrow is his service. It's at 11 o'clock at the First Baptist Church in Broken Arrow. And I would encourage you, if you're able, and you knew Charlie, I would encourage you to attend and pay his respects, because what he gave to our community is going to be extremely difficult to replace. It's like losing Pat Campbell all over again. So hopefully this is going to create an opening for someone else to bring something maybe new and different. But we've got to start supporting, especially some of our local people that do daily shows like Daily Dose of Daryl. I don't know if you want him on a daily basis, but he talks about things that are important to us. But I just wanted to, I didn't want to not mention Charlie's passing, because his passing created a huge vacuum in our community. And so with that, if I don't have anything else that we need to do, there is a donation bucket back there if you feel so inclined. We are a 501c4, which means we don't report our donors. But trust me, there's not enough money in there to be dark, so it's okay. I'm not doing anything. I'm not influencing anybody. Trust me. But thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys again next month.